The crystalline chambers of Aurora Prime sparkled like frozen starlight as Captain Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Council. Her boots clicked against the transparent floor, each step revealing the swirling cosmos beneath. The 12 council members towered above her on their hovering platforms, their varied anatomies a testament to the diversity of intelligent life in the galaxy. "The human speaks of deep space exploration," rumbled Council Member Seth, their bioluminescent tentacles rippling with barely contained amusement. "When their species has barely mastered their own solar system." Sarah maintained her composure, though her fingers tightened imperceptibly around the data crystal in her hand. "Earth has successfully established colonies on Mars and Europa. Our adaptation rates exceed all previous predictions." "Supervised colonies," corrected Council Member Naira, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated skepticism. "With technology graciously provided by the Council." The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed softly as Sarah took a measured breath. The air carried the distinct mineral scent unique to Aurora Prime, a reminder that even here, humans had learned to adapt. "Which is precisely why we're ready for the next step. Our success with adapted technology proves our ability to learn and integrate with galactic standards." A series of clicking sounds echoed through the chamber as Council Member Zextal rose from their platform. Their insectoid features caught the starlight, compound eyes reflecting the endless expanse of space visible through Aurora Prime's transparent walls. "Perhaps the human requires a practical demonstration of why they are not ready." The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the station seemed to fade. "Nexus Prime," Zextal continued, mandibles clicking with deliberate precision. "One lunar cycle on its surface. Survive, and Earth will have its deep space exploration rights." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. Sarah's heart raced, but her expression remained neutral. Everyone in explored space knew of Nexus Prime, the world where even the most advanced species had failed to establish a permanent presence. "The world of the Star Stalker," Sarah stated, keeping her voice steady. The words hung in the air like crystal shards. Indeed, Council Member Seth's tentacles now pulsed with genuine interest. "The apex predator that has defeated every attempt at study, control, or coexistence. Even our most advanced hunting parties have failed to subdue one." Sarah accessed her neural implant, bringing up the classified files on Nexus Prime. The statistics were grim. 27 failed expeditions, 15 lost research teams, and 0 successful long-term observations of the Star Stalker species. "I accept." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds, clicking mandibles, resonating crystals, and pulsing biolights. Sarah stood unmoved at the center of the chaos, her mind already racing with preparations. "The human accepts." Zextal's announcement cut through the noise. "Let it be recorded. One lunar cycle on Nexus Prime. No advanced weapons. No orbital support. Standard survival gear only." "And if I succeed?" Sarah's question silenced the chamber once more. Council Member Naira's crystalline form sparkled as they leaned forward. "If you survive, and we emphasize the considerable unlikelihood, Earth will receive full deep space exploration rights, including access to jump point technology." However, Seth added, their tentacles now glowing with a deep, serious purple, "should you fail, Earth will accept a century-long prohibition from pursuing any space exploration beyond your current colonies." Sarah nodded once, sharply. "I'll need 3 standard days to prepare." "Granted," the council chorused, their voices blending into a harmonic that made the crystal chambers resonate. As Sarah turned to leave, Zextal spoke once more. "Captain Chen, do you know why we call it the Star Stalker?" She paused at the chamber's threshold. "No. Because in the darkness of Nexus Prime, all you see are its eyes, like a field of stars, before it strikes." The click of mandibles echoed ominously, and no one has ever seen them and lived to tell the complete tale. Sarah allowed herself a small smile as the chamber doors closed behind her. They hadn't asked the one question that mattered. why she had accepted so readily. Back on Earth, she had spent 5 years rehabilitating big cats, learning their behaviors, earning their trust. Perhaps what the Star Stalker needed wasn't another hunting party trying to prove their superiority, but someone who understood the value of patience, respect, and trust. She had 3 days to prepare for the challenge of her life, and somewhere on Nexus Prime, under an eternal twilight sky, the Star Stalker waited. The descent pod shuddered as it pierced Nexus Prime's upper atmosphere, its heat shields glowing cherry red against the perpetual twilight. Sarah watched through the reinforced viewport as sheets of dark clouds parted, revealing a landscape that defied every grim description in the Council's reports. Surface contact in 3 minutes, the pod's AI announced, its voice steady against the rattling of the hull. Below her, forests of crystalline trees stretched toward the violet sky, their branches laden with bioluminescent fruits that pulsed in hypnotic patterns. Floating islands of pure crystal drifted between mountain peaks, connected by bridges of living light that shifted and swayed in the planet's magnetic winds. Remarkable, Sarah whispered, adjusting her atmospheric suit's sensors. The readings confused her instruments. Energy patterns, unlike anything in Earth's database, flickered across her heads-up display. The Council had described Nexus Prime as a savage wasteland. But this was a world of ordered chaos, of beauty wrapped in danger. The pod's retro thrusters fired, scattering iridescent pollen from nearby crystal blooms. Sarah felt her stomach lurch as the craft settled into a small clearing, its landing struts sinking slightly into the bioluminescent moss that carpeted the ground. Atmospheric analysis complete, the pod reported. External environment within survival parameters. Caution advised. Unusual electromagnetic activity detected. Sarah performed one final check of her suit seals before cycling the pod's airlock. The door hissed open, releasing a swirl of mist into the twilight air. Her boots crunched softly against the crystalline soil as she took her first steps on Nexus Prime. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth standard, giving each movement an dreamlike quality. Around her, the crystal forest thrummed with life. Tiny creatures that seemed made of living light darted between the trees, leaving trails of sparkles in their wake. The air itself seemed to sing, carrying harmonics that made her suit's sensors flutter. Then she heard it, a heartbeat. Not through her ears, but through her boots, through the crystal-laden ground itself. Deep, powerful, and impossibly large. Her suit's seismic sensors translated it into visual data, a rhythmic pulse that made the nearby crystal formations resonate in sympathy. Sarah activated her neural implant's recording function. Initial surface observation. The ecosystem appears to be crystalline organic hybrid, far more complex than Council records indicated, detecting significant biometric activity approximately 2 kilometers. She froze mid-sentence. Among the pulsing lights of the forest, she caught a glimpse of something moving. Something massive. The Star Stalker emerged from between 2 towering crystal spires, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The creature was nothing like the grainy images from failed expeditions. It stood taller than an Earth elephant, its body a shifting canvas of darkness and starlight. Patterns of bioluminescence rippled across its obsidian scales, matching perfectly with the forest's ambient light show. Its movements were liquid grace, each step precisely placed despite its enormous size. 6 limbs, arranged in a configuration that somehow seemed both feline and alien, carried it silently across the crystal-strewn ground. But it was the eyes that held Sarah transfixed. They were exactly as Zextal had described, yet utterly different. Constellation patterns swirled in those eyes, complex and ever-changing. Not the mindless predatory gaze she'd been warned about, but something that spoke of intelligence, of awareness, of curiosity. The Star Stalker paused, lifting its head to sample the air. Sarah remained perfectly still, her years of experience with big cats screaming at her to avoid any sudden movements. The creature was less than 50 meters away now, its massive head turning slowly in her direction. Their eyes met across the clearing. Time seemed to stop. The forest's symphony faded to background noise as human and Starstalker regarded each other. In that moment, Sarah understood why every hunting party had failed. They had come expecting to find a beast, a thing to be conquered. What stood before her was something else entirely, a being that carried the very essence of this crystal world in its form. The Starstalker's eyes narrowed, constellation patterns shifting into new configurations. It took one step forward, then another, its movements deliberate and measured. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, but she held her ground. This, she realized, was the true challenge. Not mere survival, but understanding. Around them, the crystal forest pulsed with silent energy, waiting to see what would happen next. Sarah's muscles ached from maintaining absolute stillness as the Starstalker studied her. The creature circled the clearing twice, each movement a fluid dance of shadow and light. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted constantly, reminding her of the northern lights back on Earth. Behavioral Observation 1. She subvocalized to her neural implant. Subject moves like a terrestrial big cat despite its size. Weight distribution suggests highly developed muscle control. No wasted motion. The Starstalker paused, its head tilting at the exact moment she began recording. Sarah's breath caught. Could it sense the subtle electromagnetic signals from her implant? The creature's constellation eyes flickered with new patterns, and it took 3 precise steps backward. Then it did something extraordinary. It sat. Not the defensive crouch of a predator preparing to pounce, but a deliberate, almost regal posture. Its middle limbs folded elegantly beneath its body while its forward and rear pairs remained ready for movement. The pose reminded Sarah of how tigers would sometimes observe her at the rehabilitation center, confident, curious, and evaluating. Behavioral Observation 2, she continued, keeping her voice barely above a thought. Subject displays clear signs of intelligence beyond instinctive predatory behavior. Posture suggests curiosity rather than hunting intent. A soft chiming sound drew both their attention. One of the crystal formations near the clearing's edge had begun to resonate, its surface rippling with waves of light. The Starstalker rose in one smooth motion and approached the formation. Sarah watched, fascinated, as the creature pressed one of its front limbs against the crystal surface. The chiming grew louder, and patterns of light flowed from the crystal into the Starstalker's scales. The creature's bioluminescence pulsed in response, creating a mesmerizing dialogue of light and sound. Then, to Sarah's amazement, it turned back to her and made a gesture with its front limb, a clear invitation to approach. Recording Behavioral Observation 3, she whispered. Subject appears to be demonstrating something. Risk assessment suggests. She paused, weighing her options. Every survival instinct warned against approaching the massive predator. But she hadn't come here to survive. She'd come to understand. Sarah took one careful step forward. The Starstalker remained perfectly still, its eyes tracking her movement. Another step. No aggressive response. A third step brought her within 10 meters of the creature. At this distance, she could see intricate details in its obsidian scales, patterns within patterns, like fractals made of starlight. The crystal formation chimed again, more urgently this time. The Starstalker repeated its gesture, more emphatically. Sarah noticed how its eyes kept shifting between her and a specific point on the crystal surface. Following its gaze, she saw what appeared to be ancient markings etched into the crystalline structure. Remarkable, she breathed. You're not just showing me the crystal, you're showing me the writing. As if in response to her words, the Starstalker's bioluminescent patterns intensified. It placed its limb against the crystal again, and this time Sarah understood. The creature wasn't just interacting with the formation. It was reading it, using its own bioluminescence to decode information stored within the crystal matrix. With slow, deliberate movements, Sarah approached the formation. The Starstalker shifted slightly, making space for her while remaining close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from its massive form. Up close, its size was even more impressive. Its shoulder reached well above her head. Final observation for this sequence, she recorded. The council was wrong. The Star Stalkers aren't just apex predators. They're guardians of knowledge, keepers of this world's secrets. And this one, she glanced up at the creature's constellation eyes. This one has chosen to share those secrets with me. The crystal's chiming grew stronger as she raised her hand toward its surface. The Star Stalker's patterns pulsed in what she could only interpret as approval. As her gloved fingers made contact with the ancient markings, the forest around them erupted in a symphony of light and sound, and Sarah realized she was about to learn exactly what made Nexus Prime so special and so dangerous. The crystal's surface hummed beneath Sarah's touch, ancient symbols flickering to life like awakening stars. The Star Stalker's bioluminescent patterns synchronized with the pulsing glyphs, creating a bridge between past and present. Through her suit's sensors, Sarah began to understand. These weren't just markings, but a complete historical record encoded in crystalline form. Amazing, she breathed, watching as the symbols rearranged themselves. You're not just reading this. You're part of it. The massive creature turned its constellation eyes toward her, and for the first time, Sarah noticed subtle variations in its stellar patterns. They weren't random. They shifted in response to her words, her movements, her very presence. Years of working with Earth's big cats had taught her to read the smallest changes in behavior, and now those skills revealed something extraordinary. You're trying to communicate, she realized. The Star Stalker's front limbs shifted, creating new configurations of light across its scales. Sarah reached for her tablet, pulling up the basic patterns she'd observed so far. Let me try something. She adjusted her suit's external lights to mimic the simplest of the creature's patterns, a ripple of blue-white light that seemed to indicate attention or interest. The Star Stalker went completely still, its eyes tracking the artificial lights with intense focus. Then it responded. The pattern reflected back was slightly different, more complex, but built on the same basic structure. Sarah quickly recorded it, her hands shaking with excitement as she attempted to reproduce the modified version. This time, the creature made a sound, a deep resonant hum that vibrated through the crystal forest. Neural implant, begin new observation log. Sarah subvocalized. The Star Stalker species appears to use bioluminescence as a form of complex language, possibly tied to the crystal formations that dominate their environment. Each pattern builds on the last, suggesting. She paused as the creature moved closer, its massive form casting shifting shadows in the twilight. To her amazement, it lowered its head to her eye level, a gesture of trust that went against every predatory instinct. The constellation patterns in its eyes swirled into new configurations, and Sarah noticed they matched the ancient symbols on the crystal formation. You're not just communicating, she whispered. You're teaching. Over the next several hours, Sarah worked to decipher the basic elements of the Star Stalker's luminescent language. Each successful exchange brought new patterns, new variations, new understanding. The creature proved to be patient, repeating sequences when she made mistakes and introducing new elements only when she mastered the basics. As the planet's dim sun began to set, casting the crystal forest into deeper twilight, Sarah made another breakthrough. The Star Stalker's bioluminescent patterns weren't just a language. They were a key. Each sequence activated different responses in the crystal formations, revealing layers of stored knowledge. Final log entry for today, she recorded, watching as her new companion demonstrated another sequence. I believe I understand why no hunting party ever succeeded here. They came looking for a creature to capture or kill. But the Star Stalkers are guardians of something far more valuable than their physical forms. They protect the accumulated knowledge of an ancient civilization, stored within these living crystals. The Star Stalker rumbled in what Sarah had come to recognize as approval. It rose to its full height, its 6 limbs moving with liquid grace as it gestured toward a path deeper into the crystal forest. New patterns rippled across its scales. An invitation, but also a warning. There was more to learn, but also dangers ahead. Sarah checked her suit's power levels, and adjusted her external lights to signal acceptance. As she followed the massive creature into the deepening twilight, she realized that her mission had evolved into something far beyond mere survival. She wasn't just learning to communicate with an alien species. She was being invited to unlock secrets that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had never even known existed. The deeper they ventured into the crystal forest, the more Sarah understood why no previous expedition had discovered its true wonders. Bioluminescent patterns danced between the towering formations, creating an ever-shifting maze that would disorient anyone who didn't know how to read its rhythms. The Star Stalker guided her through this living labyrinth with practiced ease, its own patterns harmonizing with the forest's glow. Path detection algorithms failing, her suit's AI reported, unable to maintain reliable navigation markers. Sarah switched off the automated navigation. That's the point, she subvocalized. The patterns aren't random, they're a security system. Without a Star Stalker's guidance, you'd walk in circles forever. Her companion paused at a junction where 3 crystal spires met, their surfaces rippling with complex light sequences. The creature's constellation eyes fixed on Sarah, waiting. She studied the patterns she'd learned earlier, then carefully adjusted her suit's external lights to reproduce a specific sequence. The effect was immediate. The crystal spires resonated with a deep harmonic tone, and a section of the ground began to shift. Geometric patterns of light spread across the crystalline soil, forming concentric circles that spiraled downward into a previously hidden passage. The Star Stalker rumbled approvingly and started down the luminous stairway. Sarah followed, her heart racing with anticipation. The passage descended deep into the planet's crust, its walls lined with crystal formations that grew more intricate with each step. Beginning new observation log, she recorded. The hidden structure appears to be some kind of archive or repository. Architecture suggests advanced engineering far beyond current galactic standards. The stairway opened into a vast chamber that took Sarah's breath away. Hundreds of crystal columns rose from floor to ceiling, each pulsing with stored information. Between them, holographic displays flickered to life, responding to the Star Stalker's presence. The creature moved to the chamber's center and activated a sequence of patterns that made the entire room come alive with light and sound. "This is incredible," Sarah whispered, watching as 3-dimensional star maps materialized around them. These aren't just historical records. They're navigation charts, scientific data, technological schematics. The Star Stalker approached one of the larger displays, its patterns shifting to a more formal configuration. The hologram responded, showing what appeared to be a recording. Sarah gasped as figures appeared. Beings of crystalline light walking alongside Star Stalkers, working in perfect harmony. The lost civilization, she realized. They didn't vanish. They evolved, merged with the crystal technology somehow. She turned to her companion. "That's what you've been protecting all this time. Not just knowledge, but a legacy." The creature's response was a complex series of patterns that made the chamber's crystals sing in resonance. New holograms appeared, showing the gradual transformation of the ancient species. Their physical forms had become pure energy, stored within the crystal matrix of Nexus Prime itself. The Star Stalkers had remained as guardians, protecting both the knowledge and the sleeping consciousness of their former partners. A warning tone from her suit interrupted the revelation. Multiple seismic disturbances detected, unknown energy signatures approaching. The Star Stalker's patterns shifted sharply. Alarm, concern, determination. The creature moved swiftly to another crystal column, activating a security display that showed the forest above. Sarah's blood ran cold at what she saw. A group of sleek ships had broken through the atmosphere, their design unlike anything in Council records. "Raiders," she breathed, recognizing the modified stealth technology. "They must have followed my descent path." The Star Stalker's eyes blazed with new constellation patterns, not just protection now, but fierce resolve. It turned to Sarah, broadcasting a pattern she immediately understood. They had to protect the repository at all costs. The Raiders couldn't be allowed to discover what Nexus Prime truly held. Sarah checked her suit's systems and nodded to her companion. "I didn't come here just to learn your secrets," she said firmly. "I came to prove humans can be trusted. Let's show them why this place chose its guardians carefully." Sarah's mind raced as she studied the repository's security displays. The Raiders' ships had landed in a spiral pattern around the crystal forest, their energy signatures disrupting the natural harmonics of the formations. Her Star Stalker companions' patterns pulsed with increasing urgency as more hostile signals appeared on the screens. "They're using sonic dampeners," she realized, watching the crystal formations dim near the Raiders' positions. "They've studied this place before. They know about the resonance patterns." The Star Stalker's response was immediate, a complex sequence of lights that made several crystal columns reconfigure themselves. Hidden compartments opened in the chamber walls, revealing what looked like ancient defense systems. But instead of weapons, they were crystalline amplifiers, designed to enhance the natural resonance of the forest above. "You're not just going to fight them," Sarah said, understanding dawning. "You're going to wake the forest itself." Her companion's eyes swirled with confirmation patterns. The creature moved to a central platform, its massive form settling into what Sarah now recognized as a control stance. Its bioluminescent patterns began cycling through complex sequences, each one activating different systems throughout the repository. Sarah checked her suit's capabilities and made a decision. "Let me help. My suit's external lights. I can amplify your patterns, create a feedback loop with the crystal formations." The Star Stalker's eyes fixed on her, constellation patterns shifting rapidly as it considered her offer. Then it broadcast a new sequence, one Sarah hadn't seen before. She watched carefully as the pattern repeated, understanding flowing through her like crystal clarity. "A battle sequence," she breathed. "You're teaching me how to fight alongside you." Above them, the Raiders had begun their advance. The security displays showed them using specialized equipment to neutralize the crystal formation's natural defenses. They moved with practiced efficiency, suggesting this wasn't their first attempt to breach Nexus Prime's secrets. Sarah synchronized her suit's lights with the Star Stalker's patterns, creating a harmonized broadcast that made the chamber's crystals sing with power. The creature's approval rumbled through the chamber as their combined efforts strengthened the repository's defenses. "Neural implant, combat mode," Sarah commanded. "Track and mirror all partner light patterns at maximum intensity." The first Raider team breached the outer perimeter of living crystals. Their dampening fields created dead zones in the forest's natural luminescence, dark patches that spread like ink through water. But they hadn't counted on what waited for them. Sarah and the Star Stalker moved in perfect synchronization. Their combined patterns triggered cascading reactions through the crystal network. The forest above came alive with purpose, crystal formations shifting and realigning. Pathways disappeared, new ones formed, and the very ground began to pulse with defensive energy. "They're splitting up," Sarah reported, watching the displays. "3 teams trying to triangulate our position." The Star Stalker's response was magnificent. It broadcast a pattern so complex that Sarah's neural implant took several seconds to process it. The effect above was immediate. Every crystal formation within a kilometer suddenly pulsed with stored power, creating a dazzling display that overwhelmed the Raiders' dampening fields. Sarah added her own contribution, using her suit's capabilities to create counter-frequencies that disrupted the Raiders' equipment. The combination of ancient crystal technology and modern human ingenuity proved devastating. One by one, the hostile signals on their displays began to fade as the Raiders' systems failed. "It's working," Sarah exclaimed. "Their dampeners can't handle the overlapping frequencies." The Star Stalker's patterns shifted to something new, not just approval now, but genuine partnership. Together, they had done what neither could have accomplished alone. The creature's constellation eyes blazed with fierce joy as they continued their synchronized defense of the repository. But their victory celebration came too soon. A massive energy spike appeared on the displays, centered on the Raiders' main ship. Something was powering up. something that made every crystal formation in the chamber shudder with warning resonance. "That's not a normal ship drive," Sarah warned, her fingers flying over her suit's sensors. "They brought something else. Something big." The Raiders' ship hummed with building power, its energy signature unlike anything Sarah had ever encountered. Her suit's sensors screamed warnings as crystalline resonance patterns throughout the forest began to fracture and break down. "They're using harmonic disruptors," she realized, watching the displays. "Military grade, but modified. They're trying to shatter the entire crystal network." The Star Stalker's patterns flashed with alarm. Both of them understood the stakes. If the crystal network collapsed, it wouldn't just destroy the repository. It would erase the consciousness of an entire civilization preserved within the formations. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. "The patterns we used before won't work. We need something different, something they can't predict or disrupt." Her companion's constellation eyes fixed on her, broadcasting a sequence she'd never seen before. The chamber's crystals resonated with it, creating harmonics that made her suit's sensors fluctuate wildly. She studied the pattern, understanding flowing through her neural implant's translation matrix. "That's not a defense pattern," she breathed. "It's music. The crystal formations, they can sing." The Star Stalker confirmed with a pulse of light. Its massive form moved to the chamber's center, where the crystalline floor began to glow with ancient symbols. Sarah followed, her suit's external lights automatically synchronizing with her companion's patterns. Above them, the Raiders' weapon reached full power. The first harmonics blast hit like a shockwave, sending cracks through several nearby crystal formations. But Sarah and the Star Stalker were ready. Together, they began their counterattack. Not with defensive patterns or energy shields, but with song. Their combined frequencies resonated through the crystal network, creating overlapping harmonies that strengthened the formations instead of fighting against them. Neural implant. Analyze harmonic patterns and extrapolate, Sarah commanded. Find the resonance points. The Star Stalker added layers of complexity to their crystal song, its bioluminescent patterns flowing like liquid starlight. The creature's knowledge of the ancient harmonics, combined with Sarah's technical analysis, created something entirely new. The Raiders fired again, their disruption beam cutting through the forest's outer layers. But where it struck, it found not brittle crystal formations, but a living symphony of light and sound. Each impact point became a new note in their evolving song. "It's working," Sarah exclaimed as her sensors showed the crystal network stabilizing. "The harmonics are actually getting stronger." The Star Stalker's patterns shifted to an even more complex configuration. The chamber's crystals began to pulse in synchronization, each one adding its voice to their defensive chorus. The combined resonance built upon itself, growing stronger with each passing moment. Then Sarah spotted something in her sensor readings. "The disruption beam. It has a rhythm too. We can use that." Understanding flowed between them without need for translation. The Star Stalker modified its patterns, incorporating the weapon's own frequency into their crystal song. Sarah matched the changes with her suit's broadcasts, creating a perfect harmonic convergence. The effect was devastating. The Raiders' next blast hit the crystal network and rebounded, amplified by thousands of synchronized formations. Their weapon's energy signature fluctuated wildly as its own harmonics were turned against it. Through the security displays, Sarah watched as the Raiders' ship systems began to overload. Their disruption beam, caught in a feedback loop with the crystal network song, became their undoing. Emergency signals flashed across her screens as the Raiders initiated emergency shutdown procedures. But it was too late. Their weapon imploded with a silent flash, its harmonics collapsing in upon themselves. The remaining Raiders fled to their secondary ships, retreating from the crystal forest as quickly as they had arrived. The Star Stalker's patterns shifted to something softer now, not victory celebration, but gratitude. Its constellation eyes met Sarah's gaze, and she understood. They had done more than just defend the repository. They had proven that different species, different approaches, different songs could combine to create something greater than the sum of their parts. "We should document this," Sarah said, already accessing her neural implants' recording functions. "The Council needs to understand what really happened here." The crystalline chambers of Aurora Prime sparkled just as brilliantly as when Sarah had left them, but everything else had changed. She stood once again before the Galactic Council, but this time she wasn't alone. The Star Stalker towered beside her, its massive form radiating quiet power as its constellation eyes surveyed the assembled representatives. Whispers rippled through the chamber as Council member Seth's tentacles twisted in disbelief. "Impossible. No one has ever." "Not impossible," Sarah corrected gently. "Just unexpected. Like most breakthroughs in understanding." The Star Stalker's patterns shifted, creating a cascade of light that made the chamber's crystal walls sing in harmony. The Council members fell silent, watching in awe as the creature demonstrated the very thing they had deemed impossible: communication between species they had written off as savage and primitive. "We have reviewed your neural recordings," Council member Naira stated, their crystalline form reflecting the Star Stalker's patterns. "The repository you discovered. The civilization preserved within Nexus Prime's crystal matrix. This changes everything we thought we knew." Sarah nodded, activating her suit's external lights to synchronize with her companion's patterns. Together, they created a simplified version of the crystal song that had defeated the raiders. The chamber's resonance made every surface hum with gentle energy. "The Star Stalkers were never meant to be tamed or conquered," she explained. "They're guardians of knowledge, protectors of a legacy we never understood. And now they're willing to share that knowledge. But as partners, not subjects." Zextal rose from their platform, compound eyes reflecting the dancing lights. "And the raiders, their weapons could have destroyed everything. They were using stolen Council technology," Sarah revealed, presenting her sensor data. "Modified harmonic disruptors from your own military research division. Someone wanted the repository's secrets badly enough to risk destroying them." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. The Star Stalker waited patiently, its patterns steady and calm. It had seen civilizations rise and fall. Sarah knew. What mattered was not the chaos of the moment, but the path forward. "We have a proposal," Sarah continued once the chamber quieted. "Earth will establish a joint research initiative with the Star Stalkers. We'll study the repository's knowledge together, sharing discoveries with the Council in a controlled, ethical manner." "Under what authority?" Seth demanded. The Star Stalker answered, its patterns complex but clear. Sarah translated. "Under the authority of those who preserved this knowledge for millennia, waiting for partners worthy of receiving it." A hush fell over the chamber. The Council members conferred silently, their various forms shifting with agitation and excitement. Finally, Naira spoke for them all. "The terms are accepted. Earth has proven itself not just capable of survival, but of understanding. The joint initiative will have the Council's full support." Sarah felt a warmth of pride, but kept her voice steady. "There's one more thing. The Star Stalkers have chosen to share something special with humanity first, the crystal song technology that helped us defeat the raiders. They believe our natural inclination toward music and harmony makes us uniquely suited to develop it further." The Star Stalker's patterns brightened in confirmation. Its constellation eyes swept the chamber, and for the first time, the Council members saw what Sarah had discovered on Nexus Prime: not a beast to be feared, but a being of wisdom and grace, offering friendship to those who approached with respect rather than force. "Then let this mark a new chapter in galactic history," Naira declared. "One where we learn from our misconceptions and grow beyond them." As the chamber filled with sounds of agreement, Sarah shared a private pattern with her companion, one of gratitude and friendship. The Star Stalker responded with its own pattern, one that needed no translation. It spoke of trust, of partnership, and of adventures yet to come. The crystal forest of Nexus Prime had changed her forever, But more importantly, it had changed the galaxy's understanding of what was possible when different species chose to learn from each other rather than fear their differences.